Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12. Coming up tonight in news, referendum costs tabled in Parliament today. Homes in shanty towns marked for demolition. An American actor and comedian arraigned on drug-related charges. Mark your calendars. There are 2 new public holidays. Plus, what's up with those roadside forests? We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Vonnie Toot, and NB12 starts now. The total expenses government incurred for the gaming referendum back in January tabled in the House of Assembly today, following repeated calls for public disclosure. Christina McNeil was there as the costs were detailed before parliamentarians.
After a firestorm of controversy erupted surrounding the actual cost of the January 2013 gaming referendum, Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Nottage today tabled the cost breakdown of that referendum. However, according to Leader of the Opposition Dr. Hubert Minnis, the question still remains just how much the Bahamian government had to shell out for consultants. It was an issue of integrity, according to Nottage, who says he has not told a lie as a parliamentarian, but he felt the need to make the information public.
I promised to do this, and I need to do it because the Leader of the Opposition said that he didn't believe it when I gave the corrected figure for the cost of the holding of the referendum and the national lottery. And I guard my integrity very closely, Mr. Speaker. I've been in and out of the Parliament since 1987, Mr. Speaker. And like George Washington, they say, I never told a lie in Parliament.
Last week, Nottage says he inadvertently gave reporters the incorrect figure of $5 million when referring to the cost of the gaming referendum. Rather, he says the actual total cost is $1,238,092.95. The bulk of that money spent on the referendum was spent on making the Family Islands, overseas missions, and embassies ready for the poll and the payment of electoral officials on New Providence. As Nottage itemized each cost in Parliament today, he invited listeners to add it up for themselves.
I said that the expenditure was $1,238,092.95. And Mr. Speaker, that is made up by transfer of funds to Freeport, $123,060, transfer of funds to Marshall Barbacoa, $34,000, transfer of funds to Family Island administrators, $254,246.98, transfer of funds overseas missions and embassies, $31,831, payment to electoral officials in New Providence, $586,600.
Every single line item had a cost associated with it, including the $2,915 spent on tea supplies, badges, labels, stamps, paint, and wrapping paper, and $700 on breakfast for election officials. Nottage also took the time to note that the Ministry of Finance actually approved more than the actual referendum cost.
The Treasurer actually approved a sum of $1,393,100 for election referendum expenses. So the expenditure was under what was approved, Mr. Speaker, by the Treasurer.
However, Opposition Leader Dr. Hubert Minnis had an additional question.
Is it possible for him to give us the details of the costing for the consultants that were involved with the referendum?
But this was his response.
There were no consultants of which I'm aware. Certainly not hired by my ministry or the Parliamentary Registration Department for the referendum.
Last November, Prime Minister Perry Christie told the press that London-based consultants Dixon, Wilson & Co. advised the government on gambling issues but did not provide his administration with a formal report. According to Christie, South African gaming consultants also reviewed possible gaming legislation and the proposed gaming referendum questions in advance of the poll. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
From the crime beat, drug enforcement officers on Grand Bahama scored with a $2.3 million drug bust this morning. It's just the latest major drug seizure in recent weeks. DEU officers were driving along Warren Lavarity Highway at 12:50 this morning when they noticed a loaded van. Its occupants were said to be acting suspiciously. After attempts to stop the driver failed, a high-speed chase ensued. Officers eventually caught up with the van on Fishing Hole Road. A search of the vehicle revealed 21 duffel bags, pictured here, filled with multiple packages of suspected marijuana. The drugs weighed in at 2,283 pounds. 4 Grand Bahama men ages 23 to 39 were arrested. From the courts, American actor and comedian Craig Robinson was convicted of 2 counts of drug possession this afternoon after he pleaded guilty to the charges in a magistrate's court. Robinson, who is best known for his roles on The Office, Hot Tub Time Machine, and This Is the End, was found with half a gram of marijuana and 18 ecstasy pills. According to prosecutor Ursel Dorset, the drugs were found in Robinson's luggage at Lynden Pinling International Airport. The 41-year-old Chicago resident was scheduled to leave the country yesterday. Dorset said Robinson was in U.S. Customs and Border Patrol when he was stopped by immigration officials. When asked by Magistrate Andrew Forbes where he got the drugs from, Robinson said he brought them with him from the United States. Robinson said he carried drugs through an airport in the U.S. undetected. When asked by Magistrate Forbes if he knew the severity of his crimes, Robinson replied no. Forbes told him that the minimum sentence for both counts is 4 years imprisonment. Robinson told the magistrate that he did not know that marijuana was illegal in the Bahamas. Robinson was not handcuffed when he was escorted in or out of court, which is customary for people in police custody. Robinson was not given the customary minimum sentence either. Instead, Forbes imposed a fine of $1,000 or 6 months in prison. Robinson indicated in court that he was prepared to pay the fine. Forbes said once the fine is paid, Robinson will be handed over to immigration officials for deportation. And 2 Bimini men who escaped police custody were today sentenced to 6 months in Her Majesty's prisons. Gavargo Saunders, age 22, and Sean Livingston Solomon, 40, both of Alistown, Bimini, both pleaded guilty during separate arraignments in a magistrate's court. They escaped from the Alistown police station on Sunday. Solomon was in custody after he was arrested in connection with drug possession, while Saunders was in police custody for separate and unknown reasons. According to the prosecutor, the bars in the block where they were being held were cut. Saunders admitted that he was wrong. Solomon said he escaped because he didn't want to go to jail. Solomon was also charged today in connection with possession of 411 pounds of marijuana that police confiscated in a bust on Bimini Saturday morning. He pleaded not guilty to that charge. The family of a man who was fatally shot in Crooked Island in 2012 is hoping to get answers surrounding his death during a coroner's inquest. A jury was selected yesterday for the inquest into the death of Ezra Ferguson. The 25-year-old Crooked Island resident was fatally shot by a police officer in March 2012 while he was at Seaview Beach. Shortly after the shooting, the officer with an interest in the case was transferred to New Providence. Police released few details on the incident. This is the 3rd case centered on a police-involved death to make its way to the coroner's court this year. Ferguson's family is being represented by lawyer Christina Galanos. Scores of makeshift homes in shanty towns across New Providence have been marked by government officials for demolition, while scores of others have already been torn down by landowners. That's according to head of the Ministry of Environment and Housing's Shantytown unit, Leonard Miller. NB12 visited one of those communities today to get residents' reactions. Break down. That was the unmistakable message scrawled in red spray paint on several wooden structures in shanty towns across New Providence. The plan is to identify which homes will be torn down by demolition teams. This Joe Farrington Road shanty town, ravaged by fire several months ago, was no exception.
Yeah, they came and they put signs on houses and they'll say they have to broke down and we have to go get proper plan and permit. So that's what we're trying to That's what we're trying to deal with now, trying to finish clear up and everything.
And how many houses did they put those signs on?
I should say majority of the houses,
And that would be how many, if you remember?
but 36 to 40.
Jocelyn Similian, who was born and raised in this community, told us that shortly after government officials marked dozens of poorly built homes, residents got to work demolishing the structures themselves. Piles of plywood and other building materials now sit where wooden structures once stood. Similian says the plan is to sell certain materials. However, residents need government's help disposing of the rest.
A lot of structures left and up, we be breaking down. We start from the back, we breaking down, coming back and up. So we just don't have nowhere to put the garbage and old wood and all these old tents. Would be putting aside, we need dumpsters, probably 1 or 2 tractors to help us clear up. Because we can't do it by ourselves.
The 25-year-old father of 2 says most of the Haitian nationals who once lived in the structures have since left the community. However, he says they're now struggling to pay rent.
Well, majority of the Haitians, they move out. But now it's like more like the Bahamians who live here and the people who's straight, who's here so long, who ain't got nowhere to go. So just trying to clean up and make things right.
And Haitian members, where did they go?
The majority of them live in apartments. They live in apartments, and the set who can't move out, they just stay on working and trying to see if they can get their money together to move out.
Government officials estimated that 400 people lived in this village before July's fire, which destroyed 30 structures and left about 100 people homeless. Now, Similian says just over 30 residents remain. As they continue to tear down marked homes, Similian says they have been assured that those structures that meet building codes will be spared.
Structures like majority, I'm like 1 or 2 of the structures don't have to come down. They just have to go get the plan and the permit and the proper building code and upgrade their place. That's what the inspectors told us.
It is unclear when government will begin to tear down other structures. Miller said the unit is working to ensure that all of the illegal communities are cleaned up. The removal process comes months after Environment Minister Kenra Dorset vowed to crack down on those shanty towns. And if you've driven along the streets of New Providence in recent weeks, you may have noticed the deplorable state of public parks, roundabouts, and roadsides that for weeks now have been overgrown and unkept, making the island look quite unsightly. Works Minister Philip Brave Davis told NB12 today that his ministry had to address some internal issues regarding transparency for contracts for cleaning the roadsides, verges, and parks. He said the ministry is using this as an opportunity to provide jobs to unemployed Bahamians who have difficulty finding and keeping work. Nonetheless, he said the ministry is working on tidying up the island and the problem should be addressed in about 2 weeks.
In certain areas where constructions are continuing, that will be the responsibility of the contractors in those particular areas. The areas under the areas that we're concerned on, it just so happened, as I said, we asked the Bahamian public to be tolerant. We have been allowed to grow high because, again, bringing order to the place, it took longer than we anticipated.
Davis said just under 400 people will be hired through private contractors to clean the areas in addition to the staff within the ministry.